Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to Wheels of Fury Road to Glory, a high-octane Necromunda Underhive Racing Campaign inspired by the Wheels of Fury rule supplement from Games Workshop. Deep beneath the Hive cities and across the radioactive ash waste, 10 outlaw racers risk everything in a brutal campaign of speed, sabotage, and survival. These aren't armies fighting for territory, they're desperate crews piloting heavily customized death machines through collapsing tunnels, toxic sump canals, ash waste highways, and riot-filled dome streets. Every race brings new upgrades, catastrophic wrecks, bitter rivalries, and legendary moments as drivers become the undisputed Lord of the Road. So now it has all come down to this. The last 5 races have been culminating to our very final event, race number 6, which is a Road to Glory race that is fought between our 4 surviving racers. They will actually race in a couple of different scenarios, racing through different levels of the Road to Glory to figure out once and for all who is going to be the overall champion of our Underhive Racing Campaign. It's been a long time coming. We saw a lot of destruction and death taking place on these racetracks, so now it comes to the final event. Now, because this video is a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that we can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So with that being said, let's get this battle report on the roll by going over our rosters and showing our racers and the vehicles they're piloting.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So, race number 6 is the Road to Glory. It is a rolling road scenario that consists of 6 different turns. Victory conditions is to be the very first one across the finish line. As you can see, these boards actually have very specific turns and straightaways inside of it. So what ends up happening is that racers will run directly at the end of this table. When they get to the end of that table, we'll shift all the terrain and change the entire terrain conditions for them to continue on with the track, and they go for 6 turns. The very first one across the finish line is the winner of this race. Now for rewards, of course, obviously if you took part in the race, earn 25 credits as well as 6 D6 experience points. First place winners earn 100 credits and 10 experience points. Second place winners earn 75 credits and 7 experience points. Third place earns 50 credits and 5 experience points. If you complete the race, you earn D6 times 10 credits and 3 experience points. And for each race you take out of action, you earn 50 credits as well as 5 experience points. Alright, so let's talk about the play real quick. As you see, our racers are aligned on the bottom left-hand side. That is actually going to be the starting lineup, and then of course the upper right-hand corner, as the table kind of turns, that's going to be the very first part of this race. We're using the typical Wheels of Fury rules in terms of whoever makes it to the end of the line, they get a marker for how many racers they beat. So when they go to the next table, they get that many inches forward, so that way they're kind of ahead of the race of the pack, and then of course the rest of the guys show up on the table after they get to the next terrain piece. And that's pretty much how it's going to run for this one. So, starting on the left-hand side, we have the Grudge Bearer right in the center of Brimstone, and right next to them on the right-hand side is Outlaw. And then finally we have Blade Runner, and right next to her on the right-hand side is Booster Gold. And that's going to make up the play for this one. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my friends roll off for initiative to see which of them will be going first. So we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and Blade Runner will be able to get the initiative on this one, so she will be activating first in this race. So the very first race to activate is the Blade Runner. The first thing she does, of course, is a drop mine basic action and moves up forward 9 inches. As you can see, the Blade Runner drops a Melta Trap right between Outlaw as well as Booster Gold, and of course that's going to trigger the explosion between those 2 vehicles. The Melta Trap explodes, covering both vehicles in just white hot plasma, and of course it's going to cause all kinds of damage to both vehicles. Alright, so the Melta Trap is striking at Strength 8 with minus 4 AP, it causes 3 damage as well as a 5-inch blast template. It also has the Melta keyword as well. The very first vehicle we're talking about is Booster Gold. So a Strength 8 attack gets a side toughness 9 up, it's going to end up a 5+ in order to wound. So luckily for Booster Gold though, the Melta Trap failed to wound it. However, a little bit of a different story when it comes to Outlaw. The reason why is because that Strength 8 Melta Trap is striking against a side toughness of 5, which would be much easier for it in order to do that. So because of that, Blade Runner needs to roll 3+ in order to wound. The wound is good, so unfortunately also puts a minus 4 AP on Outlaw's armor save. Now Outlaw usually has armor save of 4+, but because that minus 4 AP, it is negated, and because of that, the Outlaw suffers 4 damage right off the bat. Now originally the damage dice came up as a catastrophic hit to the drive, and so because of that it gets dropped down though to a glancing hit to the drive, and that's because of the redundant drive system that Outlaw has instead. So because it ends up being what's called Pink Slapper instead, they suffer a loss control test requiring them to have a handling test of 5+, and they manage to pass it no problem. And for the rest of her activation, Blade Runner moves up another 9 inches, kind of occupying the corner there, making her way directly towards the very first turn. So up next is Brimstone, the Corridor Road Preacher. He decides to do exactly the same thing that Blade Runner did before by doing a Drop Mine basic action. The Melted Trap drops behind between both Dread Critter as well as the Outlaw once again. As you can see, the Brimstone also moves up forward 6 inches, getting away from the blast radius of that Melted Trap. And with a Thunderous Explosion, White Height Plasma Disc erupts directly into the air, engulfing both the Grudge Bearer as well as the Outlaw. We're going to start off with the Outlaw to see exactly what ends up happening from that explosion. So once again, the Melted Trap is striking at Strength 8 minus 4 AP as well as causes 3 damage. It's got a 5-inch blast radius as well as the Melta keyword. It is striking at Strength 8 against the Grudge Bearer's Strike Toughness of 6. So because of that, Brimstone needs to roll a 3 plus in order to wound. The wound is good, so because of that, the Grudge Bearer suffers minus 4 AP to its armor save. Now, Grudge Bearer usually has an armor save of 4 plus, but because of that minus 4 AP, it gets no armor save whatsoever. It also suffers 4 damage. Now, originally the damage dice came up as a penetrating hit to the body, but because the ablative armor upgrade for the Grudge Bearer ends up being a glancing hit instead, which results in a crew shaken effect, which means the vehicle crew suffers concussion with minus 2 on the handling test and must take a loss control test. With a handling of 7 plus, the Grudge Bearer manages to pass it, so no harm, no foul at this point. So continuing on the rest of the damage directly towards the Outlaw, once again striking at Strength 8 minus 4 AP, 3 damage with the 5-inch blast template as well as Melta keyword. Strength 8 versus Side Toughness of 5 for the Outlaw ends up being a 3 plus in order to wound. The wound is good, and because of that minus 4 AP, the Outlaw does not get an armor save whatsoever and also suffers 4 damage at the same time. Now originally the damage dice came up as a penetrating shot to the engine, but the engine shell actually drops it down to a glancing hit instead, which becomes the result of stutter. So because the Outlaw becomes stationary installed, which means he must take a handling test if he wants to be able to continue on his activation for this turn. As you can see, the Brimstone also finished up his rest of his activation by doing another simple movement action of 6 inches, moving directly towards that first turn in order to catch up to Blade Runner. So with that, we go directly to the Grudge Bearer, and the Grudge Bearer decides to do a double action by doing full throttle, tripling his movement allowance to 27 inches directly forward. The Grudge Bearer moves up 27 inches and ends up doing a head-on collision directly to the back of Brimstone, pushing the vehicle a good 7 inches forward directly to where that wall is located at, and this is going to actually count as a head-on collision, so because that's going to cause all kinds of problems for Brimstone. So the Grudge Bearer is going to gain +1 on all of its strength, AP, as well as damage for being a larger vehicle class. They also get additional +1 for their ram that they have upgraded for their vehicle as well. The head-on collision ends up being a strength 11 attack for minus 5 AP, as well as causing 5 damage. So the strength of 11 against a rear toughness of 4, the Grudge Bearer is going to need a 2+ in order to wound against the Corridor Road Preacher. The wound roll is good with that minus 5 AP against Brimstone's armor save of 5+, ends up negating the armor save for Brimstone, so because of that, the Corridor Road Preacher takes 5 damage in total. Ended up being a penetrating hit to the crew and ended up being with driver wounded, so because of that, the driver of Brimstone suffers -1 to the Ballista skill as well as -1 to their handling characteristic, plus the driver is able to patch up their wounds, so they're perfectly fine. Up next comes Booster Gold, the road killer with the golden name. This guy's been causing all kinds of problems for a campaign series, actually doing all kinds of rams, and since that's basically playing to his strength, the first thing that Booster Gold does is declare a ram action against the Blade Runner. As you can see, Booster Gold goes tearing across the battlefield, smashing directly into the back of Blade Runner, so because that catches it directly in the back axis, so because we're going to talk about exactly what this ram action did to the Blade Runner. So Booster Gold gets +1 to his strength, AP, as well as damage for being a larger vehicle class. At the same time, also gets +2 to the strength, AP, as well as damage for its Rock Grinder ram. So because of that ramming action, ends up being a strength 12 minus 6 AP, 6 damage hit directly to the back of the Blade Runner. So striking at strength 12 against a rear toughness of 6, Booster Gold is going to need a 2+ in order to wound. The wound is obviously good, and that -6 AP just cuts right through Blade Runner's armor save, so because of that, it doesn't receive any armor save whatsoever, also suffers 6 damage as well. Now originally the roll came up for a catastrophic hit to the body, but the ablative armor upgrade for the Blade Runner negates it down to a glancing hit instead, but ends up being crew shaken instead. Basically the Blade Runner suffers a -2 to their handling characteristic because of concussion. They have to take a loss control test, and then needing a handling of 9+. Unfortunately for the Blade Runner, it does fail that control test, but luckily for those, she only becomes stationary installed, which means that the next activation she'll need to do a jumpstart action in order to do anything. So Outlaw is activated next. The very first thing you need to do, of course, is to do a jumpstart action in order to remove the shaking condition that he actually has. Originally, Outlaw has a handling characteristic of 5+, and gets a +1 bonus for jumpstart action. He's a 4+ on pass, as you can probably imagine, manages to pass that no problem. And for the rest of his activation is a simple movement, moving up 9 inches forward, just tailing right behind Booster Gold, as well as the Grudge Bearer. And that pretty much takes us directly to the end of turn number 1. As you can see, all the racers are now off the starting line about halfway through that very first turn. Significant damage going for both groups right now, with Brimstone as well as Blade Runner getting rammed action between by rival racers, and they're all just kind of getting started in the very first turn of the game. So it's going to be very exciting to see exactly what ends up happening. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Grudge Bearer gets the initiative on this one, so they'll be activating first. The Grudge Bearer, of course, just got done doing a ramming action, well, full throttle action directly to the back of the Brimstone, causing all kinds of problems. So the first thing the Grudge Bearer does, of course, is turn kind of in place about 45 degrees and does a drop mine basic action, dropping another Melted Trap, this time on Brimstone. As you see, the Grudge Bearer does not want to see exactly what ends up happening. That Melted Trap goes off and kind of hellies on, moving up 9 inches forward and banning Brimstone with that Melted Trap exploding. A thunder crack of explosion erupts through the air through the cheering crowds as Brimstone gets showered with red hot plasma as it's caught within the blast radius of the Melted Trap. So the Melted Trap, strength 8 minus 4 AP with 3 damage, the 5-inch blast template, and the Melta keyword. As you can see right there, striking a strength 8 against a rear toughness of 4, ends up being a 2+ order wound against the Cawdor Road Preacher. The wound is good, but that minus 4 AP, it just cuts right through Brimstone's armor save of 5+, so because of that, the Cawdor Road Preacher does not get an armor save whatsoever, and to make matters worse, he suffers 4 damage. That 4 damage ends up being a penetrating hit to the body, causing structural damage, so because of that, the vehicle loses 1 whole point, must take a handling test, but luckily for Brimstone, though, it has a handling of 4+, so it passes no problem. But it's quite precarious because of all the vehicles in this race, Brimstone has the least amount of hull points. But Grudge Bearer is not done yet. He decides to do for his next action is do a move and shoot basic action, moving up forward only half his moon allowance and opening fire with his twin-linked melta guns directly at Brimstone right behind him. Apparently the Grudge Bearer was not happy with the result of that Melta Trap, so decides to finish him off with Melta Guns, moves up 4.5 inches, and cuts loose with his twin-linked Melta Gun directly against the Road Preacher. So the keywords today, my fellow Hive Scummers, is Melta, because the Grudge Bearer is loaded a bear with all of that. It's opening fire a twin-linked Melta Gun, firing at a 12-inch long range, firing at strength 8 with minus 4 AP, 3 damage, 5+ ammo roll. It's got the Melta as well as the twin-linked weapon traits, and the Blitz skill 2+. The Grudge Bearer just needs not to roll a 1, and he'll manage to hit the Road Preacher. The hit is good, so because he is striking a strength 8 against a front toughness of 4, needing a 2+ in order to wound. The wound is also good with that minus 4 AP, unfortunately, it's going to cut right through Brimstone's armor save of 5 up, so it gets no armor save whatsoever, causes 3 damage to the Road Preacher. This time the damage dice comes up as a catastrophic hit to the body, causing a weapon destroyed, so because of the heavy flamer on the Brimstone is now completely useless, got blown off by the Melta Gun as well. Suffers another loss of hull point, making a hull point now only have 2 left, 2 hull points directly on the vehicle, only having 1 hull point left before it's wrecked. At the same time, he also has to take a loss control test. Now luckily for Brimstone, he does have a handling of 4+, so because that passes no problem. So with that, we go directly to the next activation, which is Booster Gold, the living battering ram. And the first thing he decides to do is declare a double action in order to do a ram action against the Grudge Bearer. As you can see in this close-up, Booster Gold has no problem just skirting right around Blade Runner, goes directly into the back axis of the Grudge Bearer, so this is going to be bad. So Booster Gold gets +1 for being a larger vehicle class to his strength, AP, as well as damage. Gets another 2 on top of that for having a Rock Grinder ram. So that 10-inch ram is going to end up being a strength 12 hit with minus 6 AP and 6 damage against the Grudge Bearer. So striking a strength 12 against a rear toughness of 6, Booster Gold is going to need a 2+ in order to wound. Wound is good as it suffers a minus 6 AP, cutting right through the Grudge Bearer's armor save of 4+. Against no armor save, it suffers 6 damage when it's all said and done. Now, originally the damage was a penetrating hit to the crew, but with the crash cage upgrade on the Grudge Bearer, it actually drops it down to a glancing hit, so they suffer the crew shaking result instead. They have -2 in their handling and cause a loss of control test, and if they fail it, it becomes stationary and stalled. Now, with the handling characteristic of 7+, the Grudge Bearer fails it. So the Grudge Bearer becomes stationary stalled, so he'll need to do a jump action if he wants to be able to activate in the next turn. So that we decided to focus next on Outlaw. Outlaw decided to do a move and shoot basic action against Brimstone. The Paladite Ranger moves up 4.5 inches and then opens fire with his twin-linked concussion cannons and the short range directly at the Road Preacher. So the Outlaw is firing his twin-length concussion cannons, hitting at a 9-inch short range on that one, getting +1 hit because of that short range modifier. They strike at strength 4 with -1 AP as well as 2 damage with a 4+ ammo roll. Also gets a 3-inch blast template on the one that causes concussion, seismic knockback, as well as a twin-linked keyword on that one as well. And with the ballistic skill 2+, he's easy to roll a 2 or higher in order to hit. The hit is good, so you're striking at strength 4, gets a side toughness of 4, so because of that the Outlaw needs to roll 4+ in order to wound. The Outlaw manages to stick that wound as well with that -1 AP. Brimstone's armor save drops from a 5+ to a 6+. Unfortunately for the Cawdor Roar Preacher, though he fails his armor save, takes due damage as well. The damage dice come up and ends up being a catastrophic hit to the body, which is going to cause it to lose 2 hull points. And just like that, boom, and just like that, Brimstone is wrecked. Unfortunately for the driver, when they rolled it for the injury on that one, ended up being a memorable death. So just like that, the Brimstone erupts in a ball of flame, and the driver is killed outright, and Brimstone is now eliminated for the rest of the race. And to add insult to injury, as you can see for the rest of the activation, the Outlaw just moves up 4 to 9 inches, just skirting right past the wreckage that it caused to the former Cawdor Roar Preacher. So that we go directly to Blade Runner. Blade Runner, of course, has to do a jumpstart action in order to activate. The jumpstart action requires her to take a handling test. Originally, she has a handling test of 7+. She gets a +1 bonus for jumpstart, needing a 6+ in order to pass. And unfortunately for her, though, she fails the very first time. So because I should do a second action, once again doing the jumpstart test, and this time manages to pass. So because of that, she will be able to activate next turn. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 2. As you can see, all kinds of chaos is taking place on the racetrack. Brimstone has been eliminated from the race. Everyone's kind of bottlenecking directly to that right-hand turn in order to exit this very first set of the tracks, because every single time they made it off the board's edge, we're going to rearrange all the terrain so that way they can keep on racing to the Road to Glory. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3. Alright, so with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3, and the Grudge Bearer will be activating first in this very third turn of our race. The very first thing that the Grudge Bearer has to do, of course, is to do a jump start in order to activate its engines again. So he has a handling characteristic of 5+. He gets +1 bonus for a jump start action. He needs a 4+ in order to pass. As you probably guess, he gets a no problem. And for his second action, he moves up another 4 to 9 inches as well, trying to make his way directly to the table edge so that way we can advance on the race. And Booster Gold gets to activate next, and once again he does what he does best. He declares a ram double action, this time against the Grudge Bearer. With a massive scream of its engine, the Booster Gold goes rocking across the battlefield, goes directly into the back of the Grudge Bearer, smashing directly into him with a head-on collision. So Booster Gold's going to get a +1 bonus to his strength, AP, as well as damage for being a larger vehicle class, and an additional +2 bonus for having a Rock Grinder ram. So that 10-inch ram action ends up striking at strength 12 -6 AP as well as 6 damage. Striking at strength 12 against a rear toughness of 6, Booster Gold needs to roll a +2+ in order to wound. The wound is good, and that -6 AP cuts right through the Grudge Bearer's armor save of 4+, so the Grudge Bearer gets no armor whatsoever and also suffers 6 damage as well. Now originally that 6 damage was going to be a penetrating shot to the body, but the Grudge Bearer's ablative armor drops it down to a glancing hit instead, so because of that the driver actually suffers a crew shaking result, suffers -2 to his handling test for concussion, and must take a loss of control test requiring a 7+ in order to pass. Luckily for the Grudge Bearer, though, he managed to pass that test no problem. So up next is the Outlaw, the Paladin Ranger. He decides to do a full throttle double action, traveling up for 3 times moon allowance, moving up for 27 inches. As you see, the Outlaw is going to go directly to the end of the table as well, passing off the board edge and secures 3 tokens for himself, which will get him an 18-inch lead when the track shifts. Meanwhile, we go back to the Blade Runner. The Escher Hellion decides to do a double movement forward. She moves up 18 inches directly to the edge of the table, and of course this is going to kid us everyone directly to the end of the turn, so that way we can start rearranging the terrain and continuing on the Road to Glory. And that takes us directly to the end of turn number 3, and as you can see, the terrain has now been completely rearranged. This time we're in a straight open area full of all these gantry walkways and bridges. Even the Paladin Enforcers have been nice enough to empty out the prisons so that way they can have their jail cellies come out to the courtyard so that way they can also view the race as well. Basically what's going to happen is the racers are going to start from the upper left-hand corner and race down to the bottom right-hand corner. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4. My friends roll for initiative, and the Grudge Bearer will be getting the initiative on this one. As you can see, my friends are organized in the upper left-hand corner of the battlefield. And as you see, even though the Outlaw has an 18-inch lead from the edge of the table, it's not very much because, you know, we're in the corner position right there as well. The rest of the racers are organized right behind the Outlaw as well. So going back to the Grudge Bearer, the first thing he does is decide to declare a double action using a full throttle action, moving 3 times his moon allowance, rocketing forward 27 inches. The Ironhead Squat Prospector Gearhead just goes rocking across the battlefield, narrowly missing that little signpost up ahead with the highway sign as well. That could have been really bad if he collided directly into that vehicle, because that would have been a head-on collision at that huge speed it was rocking across the battlefield. So that part was quite lucky for the Grudge Bearer. And with that, we go directly to Booster Gold. He decides to actually move up forward 8 inches, not deciding to open up with the ground for the very first time ever. Moves up 8 inches forward and decides to do a move and shoot basic action, moving an additional 4 inches, and opens fire with his twin-linked autocannons at the Grudge Bearer. The twin-linked autocannons was actually a brand new weapon upgrade that the Booster Gold got for itself. As you can see, he opens fire directly across the battlefield, directly towards the Grudge Bearer. Those twin-linked autocannons are no joke, striking within the 24-inch short range, striking at strength 7, minus 2 AP, 2 damage, with a 4-up ammo roll, with knockback, rapid fire 1, as well as twin-linked. Now with a ballistic skill 2+, he does need to roll a 2 or higher in order to hit, but unfortunately for Booster Gold, he rolled a 1, so because of that, nothing much really happens there. Outlaw activates next, but instead of actually fighting, he decides to do a double movement forward, because this is a race after all. He moves up 18 inches forward, going right around the foxhole, as you can see over there in the right in the center of the battlefield, kind of just almost taking the lead right next to the Grudge Bearer. And finally, the Blade Runner also activates next, decides to do a full throttle action as well, which is going to be a double action, having her rocket forward 27 inches forward as well. Her anti-grav engines go screaming across the battlefield as she rockets on the other side of that little biodome farm, as you're seeing right there. By the way, I actually had a viewer ask about those. I think it was on one of my YouTube shorts. I'm wondering what's exactly inside of those plastic bubbles. Those are actually plants. Those are actually biodomes that our Resident Terrain Wizard Iron Major actually made. It was actually quite neat. He actually bought some dollar store clear bulbs, like decorating bulbs, from a dollar store. And he actually cut some of these in half as well, so that way he can glue them down. And the plants that he actually used on the inside are actually aquarium plants from fish aquariums, and he actually put that inside. He also put some flocking and stuff like that. He also dingied up the outer looks of the biodome to give them kind of like that dirty, kind of hazy kind of look to them. He also had a lot of little gribblies and other bits on the outside of it to make it look more technical as well. So for that viewer wondering what was that whole terrain piece, that's what those are. Those are actually biodomes. Once again, another excellent terrain piece made by Iron Major. Matter of fact, since we're on that topic, all the terrain pieces you're seeing on this battlefield is made by him. So drop a comment if you guys think his work is amazing, because we think his work really makes our channel. So with that takes us right to the end of turn number 4. As you can see, the racers are about halfway through the end of the battlefield. As you can see right here, the idea here is that the lineup that they need to pass through is that bridge on the bottom right hand side. That bridge is going to be the entry point for these guys to race through, so that way they can race through that little entry point, and then they can go on directly to the rest of the turn after they pass that area. And with that takes us directly to the top of turn number 5. My friends, we're all for initiative on this one, and the Blade Runner gets to activate first. So the Blade Runner activates, decides to do 2 simple movement actions directly down the length of the battlefield, just because it is a race and she wants to be the one who wins it. As you can see, the anti-grav engines on her medium custom vehicle scream as she goes forward 18 inches, going directly just to the base of that bridge. You have to pass through the bridge if you actually want to move on to the next part of the race. So with that, the Grudge Bearer actually activates next. He decides to do a move and shoot action against the Outlaw. And he decides to open fire with his twin-linked bolted guns directly on the front left-hand corner of the Outlaw. Unfortunately for him, though, he misses his shot, though. He does finish out the rest of his activation, moving up 13.5 inches. Unfortunately, I forgot to take a photo of that part, so I do apologize for that. Moving on to our next activation, Booster Gold activates next, and once again he decides to actually not do a ramming action, but to do a move and shoot basic action, moving up 4 inches and firing his twin-linked autocannons at the Outlaw. As you can see, the Booster Gold goes rumbling up forward 4 inches. He does have an all-around arc on his twin-linked autocannons and goes directly into the back grill doors of the Outlaw. So he is firing his twin-linked autocannons with a 24-inch short range, striking at strength 7 minus 2 AP and 2 damage with 4+ ammo save with knockback, rapid fire 1, and twin-linked weapon traits as well. He's got a ballistic skill 2+, so because that Booster Gold needs to roll a 2 or higher in order to make that hit. Managed to secure 3 hits directly to the back grill doors of Outlaw as well, striking at strength 7 against a rear toughness of 5. He's going to need a 3+ in order to wound. Of those 3 hits, 2 managed to wound with minus 2 AP as well. The Outlaw's armor save is a 4+. He's got a 6-up armor save because of that minus 2 AP. He fails both those armor saves and actually suffers 4 damage. The 4 damage originally ended up being a penetrating shot to the body, but because of the Outlaw's ablative armor upgrade, it drops down to a glancing hit instead with crew shaken. He does suffer minus 2 to his handling because his crew does suffer a concussion on that one. He needs to take a loss control test at a handling of 7+. He also fails it, becoming stationary installed as well. And finishing with the rest of his movement activation, moves up forward another 8 inches on top of that with a grand total of 12 inches forward, just kind of paralleling right next to Outlaw. And with that, we go directly to the Outlaw. He needs to do his jumpstart action. Now, normally he's got a handling characteristic of 5 up, but he's got a 7+ on that one because I have -2 to do concussion. Now, he gets +1 bonus on that for the jumpstart action, giving us 6+ in order to pass, and he manages to pass that jumpstart action no problem. For the rest of his activation, he also moves up 9 inches forward as well, tangling right behind the Blade Runner. As you can see there, the Grudge Bearer also moves up forward as well. That's the photo I forgot to take, so I do apologize for that. But as you can see, all 3 racers are being balled directly towards that bridge. And with that takes us directly to the end of turn number 5, and as you can see, this is the overhead shot of the entire of the battlefield. All the racers are making their way directly to the bottom right-hand corner of the battlefield. Now, if you notice, I put up those walls there. The reason why I put up those walls there is because originally, as my friends were playing, one of them, the guy who was playing Outlaw, actually decided to, try to go around the bridge. It's like, oh wait, man, you got to go under the bridge if you want to get through that. So that was kind of like my mistake for not making that a little bit clear for my players. So you can see, I actually put up some wall barriers on either side of that bridge, representing the fact that you can't go around the bridge, you got to go under it. So I did that so that way it's a little bit more for their benefit. So I do apologize for not being clear on that one when I was doing this, because I am the arbiter in this campaign. Should have done a little bit of a better job. So we go directly to the top of turn number 6, and Booster Gold activates first this time around, so he'll be making the very first activation of this turn. So Booster Gold, he was fooling around with opening fire with his autocannon, but he decides to do what he does best, and that is declare a ram double action directly against the Outlaw. With a screaming roar of his Archaeotech accentuated engines, he goes tearing across the battlefield, smashing directly into the back grill doors of the Outlaw. So he gets some bonuses for his 10-inch ram action, getting +1 for having a larger vehicle class, as well as +2 for his rock grinder ram as well, making him strike at strength 12, -6 AP and 6 damage. That strike at strength 12 versus a side toughness of 5 ends up being a 2+ in order to wound. The wound roll is good, and that -6 AP just cuts right through the Outlaw's 4+ armor save, so because of that, the Outlaw suffers 6 damage. Now, originally the damage dice came up as a catastrophic hit to the crew, but because the Outlaw's crash cage upgrade, it drops down to a glancing hit instead, so because it does suffer crew shaken, -2 of their handling characteristic, because that he must take a lost control test and become stationary installed if he fails it. With a handling of 7+, though, he does manage to pass it, so he's perfectly fine. So because that would go directly to the Outlaw decides to declare a ram double action against the Blade Runner. As you can see, he doesn't have to go very far in order to make that ram connect directly to the back of the Blade Runner. And the only bonus he actually gets is for his ram, the weapon upgrade that he actually has on his vehicle, because he's the same vehicle class as the Blade Runner. However, that ram action is quite deadly because it is a 10-inch ram. He gets +1 for the ram upgrade he has on his vehicle, which makes him strike at strength 10 with -4 AP as well as 4 damage. That strength 10 goes directly against the rear toughness of 6 for the Blade Runner. He's requiring a 3+ in order to wound. The wound is good, and unfortunately that -4 AP just cuts right through the Blade Runner's armor save of 4+ and puts 4 damage directly onto the Escher Hellion. Now that 4 damage ended up being a catastrophic hit to the engine, but because the engine shell upgrade for the Blade Runner drops it down a glancing hit, ends up being a stutter instead, so because of that, the Blade Runner becomes stationary installed. So with that, we go directly to the Blade Runner. The very first thing she does, of course, is a jumpstart activation with a handling of 7+, and gets a +1 bonus for the jumpstart. Needs a 6+ in order to pass, and she managed to pass that jumpstart no problem. And to finish with the rest of her activation, she moves up 9 inches. Now, she's very close to the corner edge of the table, but she's not exactly at the end of it, so because of that, well, I'll probably have to go in like another round on this. So with that, we go directly to the Grudge Bearer, and the Grudge Bearer, of course, does a double series of movements forward. He goes rocking right past the Blade Runner, goes directly to the edge of the table, and because he's got 3 at the lead ahead of 3 different vehicles, he's going to get an 18-inch head start when the table gets re-racked. So here's an overhead shot of the entire table at the end of turn number 6. So Blade Runner is in the second place, followed by the Outlaw. So the Blade Runner will actually have a 12-inch lead. The Outlaw will have a 6-inch lead, and of course, when we get to the next turn, the Booster Gold will be directly on the starting line when we get to the next table. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 7 after we re-rack all the terrain. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 7. As you can see, the terrain has now changed considerably, and we're actually at the very last part of our race, which is just a straight ahead run from the top of the table all the way down past the pipe bridge. And the first person to go past the pipe bridge is going to be the winner of this race. So for the very first person to activate, that's going to be the Blade Runner. The very first thing she decides to do is do a full throttle activation, moving up forward 27 inches. As you can see, she goes rocketing across the table, making her way directly towards the pipe bridge because she wants to make it to the finish line first. And as you can see, the Omni Blaster as well as the Knight Rider ends up watching the races to make sure to see who ends up winning this race. From there we go, Booster Gold also does a full throttle action, moving up toward 24 inches as well, rocking right next to the Blade Runner. The Outlaw also declares a full throttle action, moving up 27 inches forward. As you see, he has a considerable lead ahead of the Blade Runner, making a direct pass the Escher Hellion and making the lead between these three racers. And the Grudge Bear does exactly the same thing, declares a full throttle double action, moving forward 27 inches. And he goes rocketing forward right past the Outlaw, but he just barely makes it past the bridge. As you can see, you got to go past the bridge or directly to the end of the table if you actually want to win this one. He's so close to doing it, but he was only a few inches away. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 8, and this one is of course the most important one, and Blade Runner manages to get the initiative on that one. And here's the dice total, as you can see right there. Ends up being that Blade Runner actually won the initiative on this one, followed by the Grudge Bearer, followed by the Outlaw, and lastly Booster Gold. You can see the little dice right next to them representing exactly what order they're going in. And once again, Blade Runner of course declares a full throttle double activation, moving up forward 27 inches. And just like that, she rockets directly past the bridge, directly to the end of the table, and earning the first place position for the Road to Glory race. After that, the Grudge Bear then activates next, declaring a full throttle action forward. He rockets right under the bridge as well, directly to the end of the table, earning a second place, a very close second place I might add, bidding for the Road to Glory race. The Outlaw activates third and decides to declare a full throttle action once again. He rockets past the pipe bridge directly to the end of the line as well, earning the third place position. And finally, Booster Gold also decides to declare a full throttle action as well. He rockets past the bridge as well, entering the fourth place position for this race as well. And that, my fellow Hive Scum, takes us directly to the end of the race with a victory for the Blade Runner, who managed to pull first place on the Road to Glory. And with that being said, this also concludes our Wheels of Fury Underhive Racing campaign for this channel. We're going to go directly to the post game real quick because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, my fellow Hive Scum, not only does this conclude race number 6 of our Wheels of Fury campaign, but this also concludes our overall Underhive Racing campaign as well. So now it's time to talk about the campaign triumphs and determine who actually won what triumph in our campaign, and once again determine the overall winner of the Underhive Racing campaign as well. For our very first triumph, we're going to talk about the Champion Triumph. In order to secure this triumph, you had to be the racer who won the Road to Glory race. And since Blade Runner finished first of our very last race of the campaign, she earned the Champion Triumph for her accolades. For our Speed Freak Triumph, this ended up being the Grudge Bearer. And in order to earn the Speed Freak Triumph, you had to win the most races and throughout the entire campaign, and that's exactly what Grudge Bearer did. He actually won 2 races, won the Sub-Circuit as well as the Mario Market Mayhem races as well. For the Butcher of the Road Triumph, this had to be the vehicle that wrecked the most vehicles throughout the campaign. Booster Gold kind of started a late start within our campaign, but once he started running, there was no stopping him. He managed to wreck 5 vehicles over the course of the campaign, so because of that, Booster Gold is definitely the killer of this campaign series. For the Underdog Triumph, you had to actually be the racer who actually finished the campaign with the least amount of victories, and that actually ended up being Blade Runner. Blade Runner did not win a single race until the very last one, so because of that, she qualified for the Underdog Triumph. So there's 2 triumphs that she has for her accolades. Now for the Underdog Triumph. Originally I told my players whoever survived the most wrecks was going to be the one who got the Survivor Triumph. However, though, that was actually a ruse, a lie if you will, because the real Survivor Triumph was the one who actually managed to slay the Dreadnought, which actually came out in the Bone Road Run. And of course, Blade Runner was the one to actually take out that Dreadnought during the Bone Road Run. So because of that, she also earned the Survivor Triumph. So that's 3 triumphs that she actually secured for herself for her accolades in this campaign. The next one is the Fan Favorite Triumph. This is the one I actually put up the series of posts on my YouTube channel. You guys voted on which of the racers in our campaign was your most favorite, and the one that actually won this was the Delac Road Wraith, known only as the Knight Rider. You guys actually voted from the most of all the votes. He actually secured 38 votes for himself, so because that the Knight Rider is the overall champion for the Fan Favorite Triumph on this one. And his name is the Knight Rider. Remember his name whenever you look up at the night sky. And finally, we have to discuss the overall winner of the campaign, and needless to say, that's going to be the Blade Runner. She managed to secure 3 triumphs for herself over the course of the campaign, so she is the overall winner of our Underhive Racing campaign for Necromunda Wheels of Fury. So there you guys have it. This is our campaign. It is now fully completed. Our Underhive Racing campaign is now in the books with 6 different races. Necromunda, Wheels of Fury. This was a blast to actually put this campaign together. It was a lot of fun as well. A lot of unexpected things ended up happening in this campaign. It was a great way for us to actually come back to actually making battle reports and gaming after taking such a long absence in the earlier part of the year. It was really good to finally get back to my friends again, rolling some dice, playing some games on the tabletop, and just having a blast and making content for you guys to all enjoy. I absolutely love the Underhive Racing campaign. I think it's a really great way to actually get players involved in the campaign. It also really helps out to learn the vehicle rules as well. So if you've been struggling how to do vehicle rules very well for Necromunda 2023, the Underhive Racing campaign is a perfect way in order to help you to solidify those rules as well. So that's good for this video, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. I am Commander Cheapskate. I will catch you guys in the next video. And next week, speaking of which, there's a new campaign coming on the horizon, so be a lookout for that next week. I will catch you guys when we get to that one. Peace out. Stay classy, guys.